script. So I believe that probably Neil figured it out a few weeks, about 3 weeks into the film, because he had to go get a prosthetic arm made for him. But there was nothing in the whole script that referenced that arm. But nobody in the whole film knew who the killer was. The film originally was called The Secret. And George, you can tell them why we named it The Secret.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons we named The Secret, originally it was going to be called The Secret, and then it was because we didn't want to give everybody away. We were making a Valentine movie. And when we sent Neil to get a prosthetic, we told him that he was going to have an accident. That it wasn't because he was the killer, but because he was going to have an accident and his arm was going to get amputated by the accident. So he kind of believed that. So we really did not, we had the last 4 pages of the script just not published.
And if
So
you'll
the only
notice,
person who knew that was me.
and if you'll notice, most of the actors, when I was asked to do this role, my stunt coordinator in school, in theater school, was a good friend and stunt coordinator on George's first film. And I was doing a scene in the theater, and I kept knocking everybody's swords out of their hands because I took fencing in high school. And he goes, when did you learn to do that? And I said, he was French Canadian. And I said, oh, in school. He says, how high are you? I said, high? Oh, you know. How big? How big? I said, 6'1". Ah, okay. Well, there's this guy, maybe wants to see you. So the whole thing is, most of those actors were all 6 feet. So you didn't know who.
Yeah, TJ was 6 feet.
Neil
was 6 feet. Rob Stein was 6 feet.
Yeah.
Alf was 6 feet. They were all about 6 feet tall. So you really had no idea any one of those people could have been the killer. And we played with that. Like in one of the first scenes when you see John pick up Sylvia, he picks her up the same way that the killer picks her up when he impales her on the shower head. So the actors didn't know, nobody really knew, and I think that's one of the reasons why, these were all young actors, and I didn't want any one of them suffering or faking it or not playing it naturally because they thought that they knew they were going to be the killer. So that was the concept.
I didn't want to give it away, so I was hired to do that. So no one would sort of walk my walk or, that sort of thing.
And the other thing was, since Peter was also a dancer, and I wanted Harry or the killer to have a certain amount of elegance, so he brought that kind of fluidity and elegance to the character that the actors probably could not have done. And that was just the whole idea. And when I was a young man, and I figured that's the only way I can do it, because these were young, inexperienced actors, most of them, 1 or 2 movies behind them, and I didn't want them to be affected really by knowing that, oh, I'm the killer.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Watching the movie all these years later, what are your guys' favorite scene in the movie?
Well, I like watching the older actors. I liked the police chief. I liked the way he intrinsically just took everything in and just listened. And the camera, George and I were talking about this earlier, and the camera just went right to him. So you could just see the wheels turning inside, and that brought the drama, I think, into every scene that he was in.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing them all, but to me, the Cynthia's kill with the clothes coming down and that whole thing is my favorite scene in the film. Well, I do like the fact that the acting was fun, and I liked the humor in the film, You know, it's one of the things that I wanted to do is keep it as light, if you can say that, but keep it as light as possible until, or contrast the lightness of these guys having fun with shit already going down and people dying, but these guys didn't know. So I just had a good time directing the actors, and
You saw
but
those,
technically it's Cynthia's kill.
and you saw those young actors. You saw the acting chops come out of them down in the mine when all hell started to break loose. That to me was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Since we're able to get away with so much more now, is there anything stopping you from putting out a re-release with nothing cut out?
If we'd had the footage, then we could do it. The problem is that I don't know how many of you know how 35 millimeter film editing worked back in those days, or you had to edit the negative. Once you edit the positive, there was something called an edge number on the film, and you had to match the edge number to whatever the negative was, and then cut the negative to match it so that it matched the positive. So in other words, there would be like 3, 5, 8, 7, 1, and then you go, okay, plus 3 frames. So then you'd have to find that on the negative and do the same thing. Now, once you cut the negative together and glued it together by hand, if you cut something out, you lost 2 frames. You couldn't just, put it back together again. When we were faced with the MPAA and the Motion Picture Association of America, and may God never rest his soul, Jack Valentine, who totally censored this film, we died the death of 1,000 cuts. They would ask us to cut out 4 frames. So we cut out 4 frames. And then they'd look at it again and say, oh, you must cut out another 6. So basically what happened was the negatives got just cut out frame by frame by frame, so you could never put it back together again. Now the takes that we didn't use, they were then kept in a vault at Paramount. Paramount was not happy with the fact that the film got censored. They had a major investment in this film. It opened in 1,200 theaters, the biggest opening ever for a horror film. So Paramount was not going to fight the MPAA. They had so much money invested that they just said, fuck it, we'll just show whatever censored version, we'll show that, because otherwise it was going to be an X. If it was an X, then it would be shown in about 100 porno theaters across North America. So they couldn't do that. There was too much money involved. So whatever happened was they didn't take good care of the negatives. So by the time 25 years later, they asked me to do a director's cut, and I said, sure, I'd love to. Wonder why? Well, that's because they were releasing the remake. The negative was all dust. They didn't keep it in the proper, you'd have to keep them proper humidity, proper conditions, and so on. It was unusable. Now, what happened with this cut that you just saw, these were pieces of positive and negative, or work prints that were, when we cut out the work prints, we had other versions of it and so on. And those were found in lockers and things in the Cinepix warehouse. When Cinepix became Lionsgate, these warehouses were cleaned out, and we found some of this footage. We could not insert that footage into the film at the time because the technology, the remastering technology, wasn't good enough yet. There's one version of a cut that I don't know if anyone's ever seen, where about a quarter of what you saw here was put in, but it was put in a way where it was still grainy and sort of messy and so on, because that was ended up becoming my kind of director's cut, where I said, we can't match it. It can't look that good. So you know what? Fuck it. Let's just show people that this is what it was going to be, so they know what got cut out. Then we found some more stuff, and then Shout Factory did this fabulous remake, 4K remake, a 4K reissue, whereby then the mastering technology was good enough so that now all that stuff that we found could be put in, and it's pretty seamless. You can't tell, you know. So that's the problem. So, and the scene with the two lovers, well, that scene was just so graphically unacceptable that somehow or other that has never been found. You know, I don't think it'll ever be found. So, there's a book that got put out, a novelization of the film. If you get the book, then you'll get, you know, everything that I wanted to make with this movie, but what got cut out, well, that's in the book.
Fair enough.
Anybody else? Don't be shy. Yeah.
Are you guys aware of the fan film sequel that was made around here in town with all the mines that we have?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
up here somewhere. Where are you? There he is. This is my good friend Chuck Ryan right here.
Where's Chuck?
Right here.
Oh, you made the film?
Yeah,
All right.
he played me, so he, for how many years? 6 or 7 years, tortured me on the phone. How high was your pickaxe? How round was it? How did you walk? How did you do this? And I'm like, and I just gave up, and I said, okay, I did it like this, I did it like that. The pickaxe was 31 inches high. It was this and that and this and that. And then over the years, we became really good friends. And he sent me a copy of the fan film. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
Now, are you aware that Tarantino says that this is the best slasher ever?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We're very, very, very pleased that, you know, Tarantino thinks it's his favorite. You know, I mean, basically, one of the things that John Baird, the writer, and I, and Rodney Gibbons, the DOP, the director of photography, we were jokingly saying that we wanted to make the Deer Hunter of horror films. And, you know, I think we succeeded in a little bit, but weirdly enough, I saw an interview with Tarantino. He showed up, and I think he was landing in Toronto for the Toronto Film Festival, and he says, yeah, I'm in the country of My Bloody Valentine, you know, the Deer Hunter of horror films. So we were thinking alike, you know, but it was, yeah, it's you can't get a better compliment, you know, honestly, you know. Well, it's a different film, you know. I mean, when we were making this film, I did not want to make a copy of Halloween and Friday the 13th. Those were the two films out at the time. Both of them were cookie-cutter suburbs with cookie-cutter faceless teenagers. I mean, what's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis was great.
Yeah,
you know, Jamie Lee Curtis was great, but everybody else is just interchangeable, no personality, you know, fodder. You know, I wanted to do something where the horror was not just the horror was more horrible because it was happening to people you liked, and you got to know them. And I didn't want to do it about teenagers. I wanted to do them about young adults. You know, that was the time when, I mean, you guys are from Pennsylvania, so you understand what the Rust Belt is, right? And that's when the Rust Belt was starting to really show up. So these guys, they have a problem, you know. One of them wants to leave, couldn't leave, came back. You know, jobs are tough, work is tough, you know, and these are sort of hardworking, blue-collar people who just want to have a beer after work, and and that was the idea. I wanted to make a working-class hero movie, not a suburban, middle-class, silly kids movie. So,
because that town George and I went back to, it's almost vacant. There's one restaurant, the church is torn down, the mine's gone. They got that mine, I think it had closed down for 6 months prior to.
yeah, it was about 6 months closed.
But that was the largest producing coal mine in North America. 50 million tons of coal came out of that. And
Over 100 years.
immigrants came from Yugoslavia, Hungary, Wales,
Everywhere.
Ireland, Scotland. Those were the miners that worked in those tunnels. And those were the people that made up that little town with the little houses. And it was quite a community. When we went there, it was still the remnants of the coal miners' families that were still, what are we going to do now? How are we going to find a job? So a lot of them went lobster fishing, cod fishing, moved to Newfoundland, anything to try and get a job.
Moved to the mainland, but it was that time, and that's what I wanted to make a film about, and I wanted to make a film that, was a little bit more of a murder mystery than most. I wanted to make a film that was real. One of the things I keep joking is, the killer in this film is not somebody wearing a fucking hockey mask for no reason. He's wearing his work clothes. That's what he went to work with. And, when you see them coming out of the mine the first time, that's all of them wearing the same damn clothes. So there was nothing, and everything was plausible. Everything, what we really tried hard to make sure that everything in this film is plausible. The killer doesn't walk slow and catches up to people who are running faster than, Usain Bolt. It's about love. It's about a love triangle. It's about, work. It's about,
The green-eyed monster, jealousy.
yeah, all of those things, and a little bit, it's an Agatha Christie whodunit, really. There's a book Agatha Christie wrote, which is my favorite of that, and now it's called Then There Were None. It used to be called 10 Little Indians, and basically that's what it is. You don't know until really the last minute who actually the killer is. Once you realize it's not Harry Warden, then you go, well, who is it? Okay, well, it's not John anymore, but it could have been. It's not. It's not. How do you call it? Dave. Dave or Ralph, because they're dead. Or Jim, or any of those. So that was the idea, and I think that's what kept the film in. Going up for all these years, even though it got the reason we watch horror film is for the gore, but we watch this horror film for other things, up until now. So I'm really thankful for Shout Factory to have made this last version, though. It kind of shows what I actually wanted to make.
And we're really thankful for you guys. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So we'd like to thank you.
Very much so, it's amazing. When I look at this, how many of you were born before 1981?
How old were you?
There you go.
4, 6.
Yeah. There you go. So, that's stunning that 45 years later, it's going to be the 45th anniversary in February, that people who like this film weren't even born or barely,
Out of diapers.
out of diapers, when we made this silly little movie,
Well, we can take one more question, then we got anybody?
Well, in that case, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being a
We
fan.
applaud you.
We applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you.